I wanted to bring something back to the risk and remuneration piece as well, if I can. We do quite a lot of work with banks and we do quite a lot of work with reward professionals. And interestingly, one of the key challenges that a lot of our banking clients found when the FSA introduced these new guidelines was actually getting HR and risk professionals to talk to each other and speak the same language. So perhaps that's where the lawyers and advisors can help these organisations have that dialogue.
Yeah, I think again, there's a challenge for HR professionals on the one hand to grapple with the risk issues. There's a challenge for compliance management to grapple with the HR and softer issues. And in between the two, I think there's a challenge for employment lawyers to try to help management develop mechanisms for expressing the product and the objective and communicating it in a way which sets down some very clear boundaries within which employees are free to operate. But if they stray outside those, then it's clear what the consequences are. And again, clear communication so often, or the lack of it, is so often at the bottom of a lot of employment disputes at all levels.
So I wonder what we can do to really help organisations handle these intangible new issues, to get some clarity, to really assist with communication when everything around them seems to be moving so fast.
Well, I think there are some constants. One starts with some basic building blocks. So from a legal perspective, for example, we talked earlier about how all employees have an implied duty of loyalty and fidelity. And directors also, of course, have fiduciary duties, so that they mustn't put themselves in a position where their personal interest conflicts with that of the company that they're directing. So one wants to start with expressing any particular business issues that set those boundaries. And then also, of course, if things don't work out at the end of the relationship, restrictive covenants is an area where a business can take some steps, admittedly deterrent, if you like, rather than constructive, to protect its key interests. So although English law has a doctrine of restraint of trade, so that you can only restrict someone from carrying out their occupation if it's reasonable, no more than is reasonably necessary for the protection of legitimate business interests, which are commonly identified as confidential information on the one hand and client connection on the other. So one can have restrictions at the end of employment saying for 6 months or a year, possibly longer but unlikely, you will not compete with us in certain ways, you won't go after our clients, you won't poach our staff. That at least is a starting point, but it's very much, if you like, at the deterrent and negative end of the spectrum when things have gone wrong. And one wants then to work backwards from there to say, well, what are we going to do to stop us getting ourselves into that position in the first place, and to make sure that we do have loyal and happy employees who are not going to want, either whilst they're working or when their relationship comes to an end, to go off and compete with us, or to seek to be disloyal, to take teams away, for example, to orchestrate defections, which are the kinds of problems that crop up quite frequently. What's going wrong at the top and at the beginning of the relationship that we need to put right. So I think if we start with what goes when things go wrong and look back to, well, how can we stop that happening and what do we need to do?
Essentially what we're saying is we need some joined up HR, and we talk a lot about joined up HR and how good are we in the HR profession as a whole at actually making it happen. Well, I'm not so sure, but I certainly think that now is the moment. And then of course there's the whole angle of how we recruit and assess people at the top of the organisation.
So Janice, what you're really saying is that we need to start at the very beginning, at the recruitment stage. The organisation needs to be able to articulate its vision, and the individual that they're looking to recruit, the leader that they're looking to recruit, needs to buy into that vision, to have this shared understanding in order to take that vision and strategy forward.
And this is recruiting from the outside, but it's also recruiting internally as well. So it's bringing people on through the organisation, the emerging leaders.